3 up, 2 across, tap that play button 3 times, and walk through the archway into Dialogue Alley. Hello and welcome to the show. Dialogue Alley is a podcast all about Harry Potter books, book translations, and all other things magical. I am Melanie from the Harry Potter Collection on Instagram, and with me today is Erik from Nocturne Erik.
Well, hi.
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 Hi. And
Hey.
Carly from... Oh, Erik. Also with us is Carly from All the Pretty Books.
Hello.
Hi, guys. So, Erik, Carly, and I are Harry Potter translation book collectors. And for those of you that are new to the show and don't know what that means that we all collect Harry Potter books in all different variations, translations, transliterations, all sorts of crazy otherations. If it's a Harry Potter book, for the most part, we're probably going to be trying to get it and add it to our shelves because that's what we're all about. That's what it's all about.
Clap, clap.
We have a fun episode for everybody today. We're going to be answering some questions, and we have some really, really, really exciting news that we cannot wait to share with you guys. So stick around. It's going to be a fun one. I feel like we say that every time. I hope it's fun.
It's always a fun one.
Everyone's a fun one. Every episode of Dialogue Alley is fun.
We should say one time, like, wow, we have a pretty subpar episode planned for you all.
Yeah, this episode is
Not the greatest.
Very skippable.
Mediocre.
It's very skippable. You can just, forget it.
Well, I'm super excited about our news, so why don't we get right into it?
All right.
I'm Erik, and I'm here to tell you some news. So listen up, everyone. The Secrets of Dumbledore movie is out. It's been out for a while if you're listening to this. Did anyone see it? Because I sure didn't, because...
You didn't see it yet?
No, hashtag free time and hashtag sick children and sick babysitters, and it's just
No.
the stars are not aligning, so it has not happened yet for us.
I'm so sorry to hear that because I saw it and I cannot wait to see it again.
I haven't seen it yet either. It's okay.
Oh, phew. Okay.
I
Carly,
just
you
haven't
and I
had
are-
time.
Well, hopefully I'll go see it a second time. You guys will all see it, and then we could do like a fun episode talking about it because some of the questions that we were asked today relate to the movie, and I feel like we're not going to talk about those questions until you guys see them.
Right.
The movie.
Oh, no. Okay.
Do you want to
But-
spoiler free? Just give us like a really generic impression.
Super generic. I will say that it was a lot more simple than the last movie was. I liked it a lot more than Crimes of Grindelwald. I loved Mads Mikkelsen. I thought he was fantastic as Grindelwald. I thought his chemistry with Jude Law was wonderful. It still opens up a lot of questions. But overall, I really liked it. I cannot wait to see it again.
Woohoo! I like that.
Awesome.
I like that it's more simple than the last one because we kind of talked about that on our last episode about how so much was going on in that movie that you're like, what's really important?
It was very difficult
too much
to follow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was too much. Did things get answered that we had questions about?
Yes. And I feel like we got a lot of answers in unexpected places, which was really interesting. And there were a lot of things that were big points of plot that I thought wouldn't get addressed until probably the end of the movie that they just like slapped in your face right away. It was a lot of really cool stuff. The way that it was done was really well, but we'll definitely get into a deeper conversation about it. And if anyone wants to chat with me about it, feel free to just send me a DM directly on my Instagram. So I would love to chat about it.
And don't send any messages to Carly or I that spoil the movie for us.
Yeah.
Hey, Carly, I just want you to know this person. No.
All these things happen. Like, no.
Oh, well, cool. I'm excited to see it, and I know Carly is too. So, more news. I got another book, and it was a surprise book from one of our listeners and friends of the show, Johnny, who just out of the blue sent me this book from Poland, actually. He's not from Poland, but it arrived from Poland, and it is the Polish book that was put out in conjunction with a Coca-Cola promotion. So, essentially, if you bought certain Coke products, you could redeem them somehow for a Harry Potter book, kind of like
That's
here
so
in the US, if you buy like 3 boxes of Pop-Tarts, you get a something.
So helpful.
It's like box
so helpful.
tops.
I love Pop-Tarts, so any chance to talk about them, I will talk about them. But anyway, I got this awesome book, and it's really great. So I posted a picture of it on my Instagram if you want to check that out. It looks almost identical to the just regular Polish book, but it's got this really cool like Coke rectangle on the back that's not like anything flashy. It's just part of the book. It's printed on the book. And then there's this really cool like stamp on the inside of the book as well. So that's really great. So it was a huge surprise. I don't usually get a lot of just random stuff sent to me. So whenever that happens, it's really flattering and makes me feel good and good enough to share with everyone. So, yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
It's awesome.
And that's a really cool book.
Super cool. I was really excited. And like I said, like I had no idea this was arriving. So it's hard to get me something that I'm excited about that I don't already have. If that makes sense. Because my collecting goal has been met, so it's not like I'm just waiting for like some random Mongolian book 5 or something. Like it's hard to find something that I'm really, really looking for. And this was one of them. So that was really cool. But we have other news. Should we talk about it now or later?
I like now.
I think now is the perfect time.
Perfect. Okay, so one of our listener questions that actually pertains more to the news section is about Patreon and Discord. And we'd mentioned that a few times in the past that we were looking to get on Patreon to do something a little bit more to engage with you wonderful listening people and wonderful members of this book collecting community. And we're really, really close to having that ready to rock. So Melanie, do you want to...
Yeah. Like drum roll. Brrr. We set up our Patreon. It's set up. We now have a Patreon. So, the way that we look at it is we have such a really cool community, and we say it all the time that, the Harry Potter book collector community is so tight-knit and there's so much knowledge to share. And one of the ways that we want to do that is inviting people to our Discord. So, by joining us on and supporting us on Patreon, you're going to have 2 options as far as how much you want to participate in Dialogue Alley Podcast. And one option is to just join us on Discord. And it's a pretty simple format, but you can interact, you can ask us questions, you can post pictures or post books that you might have found, or you can listen in to some of our podcasts, even a lot of other things, asking us questions live right on the podcast. So there are going to be different tier options on Patreon as far as how much you want to be involved. But we definitely love what being a part of this podcast has turned into for all of us. And we really want to just be able to do more and give back kind of by having more communication and being able to be more open with our listeners. So we are super, super, super excited about it.
I think it's also a great place that people, because we're all very accessible. You can email us, you can send us messages on Instagram and go to your websites and stuff. But this is a good place where if you join the Patreon and you get access to the Discord, which if you don't know, it's an app, or you can go on your computer and it's just like a forum, chat room, cool place that Melanie just described. But you can interact with other listeners on this show. So if you're a part of it, you're there because you like Harry Potter book translations or collecting, or you like talking about this podcast. So it's not going to be, you're not going to run into other people that are like, oh, I've never heard of this show before, right? It's like, it's just all people that like listening to this show. So you all have at least one thing in common, and probably a lot more than just liking the show. So I think that's just it's a great place for all of us to connect to each other and just make it a little bit more of an interactive, like group versus just someone messaging one of us and returning that. You can message another listener directly and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it just makes everything so accessible too. So we're really looking forward to interacting with everyone through our Discord and, expanding on things down the line and being able to figure out other ways that we can have everyone kind of participate more in Dialogue Alley Podcast.
Wait, isn't this just a ploy so that we can get super rich off of this, Melanie?
I would say no to that.
I would too. So
I just so everybody knows, the two different tier options. One is a $3 option and the other is a $5 option. And that's per month, I think. And if you select either option, that money goes right back into the podcast and giving back to you guys. It's not like we're taking this money and sticking it in our pockets. It's we're taking that money and using it to create merch for everybody, which is something we've been talking about for the longest time, or our logo, or paying for this podcast. So that's really where everything's going to. And also at the end of the day, we didn't create this podcast for that. We created this podcast to share our knowledge and to interact with everyone in this community. And because COVID happened and it sucked, and we love talking about Harry Potter books, and we love talking with other people about Harry Potter books. So that's why we're doing this, is so in the end we can do more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. More is good.
Yeah.
We like more.
More is good. More is good.
And you know what we have more? You know what we have more of?
More questions, I think.
More questions from listeners that we're going to answer.
All right. So, on to the questions. Have you guys considered... Okay, question number 1. Have you guys considered completing the set for any books besides Philosopher's Stone?
Ooh, I'm assuming that means like all the ones that exist, like translation wise. Is that how you're interpreting that?
I'm
or
not
just
sure
any set.
I'm not sure how to parse that, because I'm not sure if it means like I want all the Basque books or all the Bosnian books, or okay, I've got all of Philosopher's Stone. Now it's time to get all the Chamber books.
I think that's how I interpret it. Is like, now that you have all the Philosopher books, like should we try to get all the Chamber books or something? And I feel like for someone like Carly,
hey now,
well, you bought everything, right? You were on an everything.
I feel called out, and
while, right?
I'm still ish on that way. I'm more focused toward unique cover art, but I still, because, I do have a master in linguistics at the end of the day. So I do love language and languages and studying them and listening to them and looking at different representations of them around the world. So yeah, everything is still kind of on my radar. It's just toned down.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, but like if they offer unique cover art, like if Bosnian were offered with Grand Prix cover art and unique cover art, it'd be unique cover art only.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally don't have an interest in getting any other book. I mean, my favorite's Azkaban, but then if I were to get all the translations of Azkaban, which I think we should mention again, there are significantly less translations of any other book besides book one, right? Like there are less Chamber of Secrets total than there are Philosopher's Stone, because books like Gujarati or Greenlandic, they stopped printing them after the first book. So
Asturian's still only book one. Some of the hardest ones, some of the hardest translations are book one.
Right. And if you're doing Chamber, there's still really hard ones, like Malayalam Chamber of Secrets is still really hard, or like, Goblet Urdu is really hard. So like if you wanted to try to get all the Deathly Hallows translations, that's probably pretty easy to do.
And it would be significantly less than Philosopher's Stone, because not every language published all of them.
It would be. So I don't know. The part of me that would lean towards me personally not doing that is that I wouldn't sit well with, like, I don't know how I'd organize that shelf, really, and I just don't want to undertake something else at this moment. Who's to say I won't do it in the future? But right now I'm very content with what I have. But I think if you're a listener and you're like, hey, I want to do translation collecting, but I don't really want to, like, spend a bunch of time or money on these things that might be impossible to find, you could just start doing, like, book seven and get them all, right? Like, I don't know anyone that just has a complete translation collection of book 7 or book 5,
unless you have all of them.
Unless you have all of them, right? Like, I know, like, Peter has absolutely all of them. I think Sean has absolutely all of them. So Sean McAllister. I think we always have to differentiate.
I know. So, I mean, that would be a way to do it. But I think it would be strange to be like, okay, now I have all of book 1. Now it's time to go for all of book 4, because then there's gaps in the series, and it's like, that's my collector brain would be, that's weird. Yeah, I couldn't do that.
Because if I had to pick one, I'd pick Azkaban as my favorite book. But then I would be like, well, why do you have Azkaban and Philosopher's Stone in Afrikaans, and you don't have Chamber or any of the other ones? It'd be like, well, actually,
right.
And I'm saying that because I actually do have, that book in Afrikaans randomly. That was my first.
But I'm sure you have a story as to why.
That's my first one. My friend was in South Africa and bought me that book because they didn't have the first book, and he's like, well, I can't come away empty-handed, so I bought you this one. And I'm like, great, fantastic. It's very special. It's my friend Jeff. He's going to see the World Cup.
That's nice.
Yep. Melanie, do you have any?
Jeff.
Good job, Jeff. He lives in Seattle.
I mean, I guess I'm like on the same page as Carly. Like, I'm not necessarily going to now get all of book 6 because book 6 is my favorite. Also because I definitely agree that if I only had book 1 and book 6, like, I would feel like I need to get all of them. So that's kind of like where my head is at. But yeah, I'm not gonna now just go ahead and get all of book 6 just because I like book 6.
What else do we have, Carly?
What are some of the websites you use to shop for books? That is an excellent question. And the answer is so many in so many languages.
Yeah, I was on one today. Well, never mind. I'm not going to talk about this specific one because I can actually share more about it when we talk about it for the transition of the show. But I think all the easy ones, right? Like all the Amazons, Abe Books, eBay is super easy, but you're going to pay more money.
Yeah.
Total
usually the
Collection.
easier to shop on. Yeah, Total Collection is a good one. But I found like some of the websites that are more wider known, like what you're saying, you're usually going to pay more because one, the sellers have to pay pretty decent fees to get the books up in front of your eyeballs in the first place. But also the fees are high, and 2, they know that it's probably going to sell at some point.
Right. And I would also say, like, this doesn't spoil the translation, but if you go to the publisher's website and they sell directly from whatever country you're in, looking for it in, like, that's usually pretty easy if it's still in print. Or if you just look up the capital city of whatever country you're looking for this book in, and then you look for bookstores in that city online, you can probably find a bookstore that has a website and buy it from them if they still sell it. So
I do
that's
that quite a bit.
That's a little more work that you have to do using Google Translate maybe, but especially if it's a European country, I mean, you could always send an email in Google Translate, but it's very likely that someone at their bookstore speaks English also. So
Within reason, yeah.
Within reason, yeah. So I would always send like an email in Google Translate it into whatever language, like let's say Serbian, for example. Like you would send it in Serbian. Yep. I would also include the English text below it too, just in case the translation's horrible. But I found a lot of books that way, just using another website, like all those Taiwanese books, like books.com.tw. Like the whole site's in Chinese. So like I can't read it, but I just used Google Translate and I was able to stumble my way through it. And 20 minutes later, I'd ordered a book and it came to my house. So and
it came relatively quickly and painlessly at that.
It did. So like I can't give
it was
like
a pretty
names. I can't like name those websites because I don't really remember what they are. But if you just do some digging, like you'll find some places to buy it, and you can get a feeling if it's legit or not, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And when in doubt, PayPal. Like that's always my go-to is if I'm on this random crazy weird website that is in a language that I've never even heard of and I'm trying to get a Harry Potter book, if they use PayPal, then I still feel pretty comfortable getting a book because if the book doesn't come to my house, then I can put in a claim for it. So
totally.
That's always like my rule of thumb, but that's not to say that like I honestly feel like majority of the books that I've gotten is through this community through Instagram, is by reaching out and, you know, just like reaching out to people and saying, hey, like, do you have any books for sale? Or, hey, I noticed that you have books for sale. Like just little things like that, because again, you know that you're getting books from quality people and they're also quality books. And I don't know. It also helps out being a part of this community because I might find a book that's translated into a certain language, but they don't ship here. But I have friends that live in the UK that I can have the book shipped to them and then they can ship it to me, or they can hold on to it for me and then mass ship books or whatever the case may be. So
yep, that happens quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. It's happened to all of us for sure, where we've had friends that are like, oh, hey, wait, I have books for Melanie and Eric and Carly, so I'm just going to ship them all to Carly, and then Carly will disperse them from the UK. So that's always really helpful.
Yeah. And it keeps our shipping costs down, because that's part of translation collecting in general, or even just, because I don't just collect translations, I do Harry Potter, other things too. But they're all coming out of the UK for the most part, so costs can get high.
Yeah, well, we talk about that a lot, Carly. Like the price of a new book, if it's coming from Hungary, right? It's not an expensive book, but if you're shipping it from Hungary, it's going to add to the cost of the book. So like that counts as cost of the book also.
For sure.
So like if I was going to resell that book that I just bought for €15 or $15 or whatever, like just the normal price of a book, but I paid $35 to ship it here. Like my cost of the book is $35 plus what I paid for the book. So I'm in it at $50. So that's what I'm going to sell it for. I'm not going to sell it for $12 or $15. So
you can't even do that logically.
No. And then that's part of the cost. So when you're buying from these websites, shipping might be a little higher than you're used to if you're buying books just from the US, but that is just part of it. Like if you're buying books from foreign countries,
right. It's not because you're getting ripped off or anything. It's honestly just the cost of the book.
Right. Oh, and I will add really quick, like hot tip from me. Like I always use my American Express card and it has no foreign transaction fees on it. So like I think American Express, like PayPal, has a really good protection from the buyer. But also that you're not paying a foreign transaction fee to convert your US dollars into whatever you're buying it in, whether it's pounds or euro or
that's a really good point.
So that's just what I have stuck to, and it's really helpful. So if you're not sure if your card has waived no foreign transaction fees, you can ask your bank. But I know PayPal they do charge you a little bit. It's not a ton, but you're not necessarily
it's not bad.
You're not necessarily getting like the official bank rate of like what the current exchange rate is for currencies when you're using PayPal, but it's still really safe. So I highly recommend PayPal also.
I like what Melanie was saying. If it has PayPal, I generally know that it's going to be okay.
Oh, for sure. And if some place takes American Express, like that's to me, like that's pretty legit too.
This is a really good question. And is everyone 100% sure the first Mongolian translation is authorized? And I am, and I can tell you why.
Good, because I am too, and I can't tell you. No, I'm just kidding. Tell us why, Carly.
So basically, this was a question that I asked another fellow collector called Xander a few years ago, back when we were trying to figure out or get a list of authorized translations and whatnot together. And he emailed Neil Blair, and they had sent a list of open contracts, and I believe recently closed contracts or something like that. And what we're talking about with the first Mongolian translation is the one with the strange cover movie art.
It's published by Nepco.
Yeah, by Nepco. There was one that predates that, but it's got Grand Prix art and it's unauthorized. So the Nepco ones are the ones I'm referencing. And they were on the list, if I remember properly. Like we talked about it, we were shocked because we thought for sure, given the quality, that they probably weren't authorized. But they were on the list with the publisher, meaning that at one point they were.
And
they had the rights.
I reached out to Potterglot today too, just wondering. I thought I had read something on his site about this book, but he said no, he hadn't written anything about this. But yeah, he said
I think he saw the list too.
He saw the list too. Yeah, he said mm-hmm. Nepco was listed as one of the publishers that the Blair group had reached out to and was working with. So as far as he's concerned, also it's authorized. And
I do have a question though. Like I believe the hardcovers absolutely were authorized, but I think the soft covers came maybe after the publisher lost the rights.
Oh,
because the soft covers are years later. I'm not sure. It's just something I'm curious about.
Right,
don't start things that you don't want to finish, Carly.
That is a big can of worms you just opened up.
I know, but I wouldn't know how that would go.
Potterglot just fell out of his chair. He's like, "What?"
I know. Well, no, this was something we'd actually talked about. I want to say years ago when we were discussing it because we weren't certain. Like we knew for certain, that this hardcover were, because I want to say it fell within the time frame that the contracts were listed. I want to say there was a time frame there, but the time frame didn't include when the soft covers came out. And we're like, I wonder if, but it would depend on. There's a lot of legalities tied up in that, right? Like they may have the rights for this, but they can't do any further, or they may have the rights to the text block and they can keep reprinting, but they can't do new stuff with it.
Right. Well, and yeah, I need a hardcover, so let's just pretend you didn't say that. But I think the fact that they released the second book also, right, with the same sort of cover style, it's kind of like the same. Man. But but it's green faced instead of not definitive. But by the styling, I mean like it's kind of like this just doesn't feel like, and I think that's where this question was asked, because if you look at it, much like the Farsi Persian book, like this one just doesn't look as legitimate as the other ones. And I can see why, right? Not many authorized translations use the movie poster art. And I feel like
they got in trouble
for that, right? Which is why they stopped doing it for the second book. And I think
they got in trouble, yeah. And I think that was kind of their, like, well, okay, you tell us you can't do this, we're going to make it look really bad kind of thing. Like, or they found out way late and couldn't change the art.
Right.
And so they just took the faces off and kept them like vague and green.
Right. And then they said, you know what? We're done with you guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that true story. But that's just what I would gather.
But I remember that I remember that conversation. It was Potterglot, me, and Xander very distinctly. And we were all three shocked that Nepco was on the list. Because the books don't look really authorized. I mean, in the grand scheme of other things.
No, they don't. But they're cool books, though. Like, if you can get one of them.
They're amazing.
Get one. They're really cool. So, yes, we are 100% sure, right? Everybody is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're 100% sure that it is, but not the paperbacks.
No.
Disclaimer.
No. Do you only have a paperback too, Melanie?
Yeah, of course.
I only do too.
Yeah.
Don't make me get on my email But you know what? That would be a really nice excuse to email the wonderful people at the bookstore in Ulaanbaatar that I was talking to, where I got my first one. So
And
well,
that
I would
was
need
such a
book
cool
1
story.
and 2. That's the problem also. Like, I need both books.
Oh, I see.
This is annoying. All right, next question.
Do you organize translations, PS translations, separately or together by alphabet? Mine are together by alphabet. Like if I have all of the Basque ones, then they're all with the B's.
That's how mine are too.
Like
Yeah,
Basque,
I just
1 through
start at the
7.
A's and I go to the Y's.
Yeah.
And if I have all the finished books, they all just go in order there. Although I do have a couple books not with the rest of them, like my German book with the alternate cover for book 6.
Yeah, that one's set aside.
Like I took that one out. I have some random ones out too that are not like I have some unauthorized like Amharic and Tigrinya books that I just have displayed right now. Which I feel like I'll rotate some of those. I did that at my old house too, like when I had just had that shelf where I could display books. So
I remember that.
If I have doubles like pre-movie Swedish and regular Swedish, like I'll just pull one and put one out there for people to look at. That way, just it's more appealing, I think, for people to look at the cover art than the spine art, and then they're not like waiting for me to pull one out. It's like, oh, here's some cool ones, just look at them. So I usually only do that on ones that I have doubles of. Per se, like one's pre-movie and one's like movie font. Otherwise, otherwise it's A through Y, and then all my American books are together. All of my house sets are together, and then but the translations are all alphabetical.
Same.
Yeah, I feel like this is like another thing that like it's Melanie's set of rules, because I'll do just by language they're alphabetical, but say it's German and I have entire sets for almost all of the German books. I think I have all of them. I think I'm missing like 2 or 3 books, but then if I have multiple sets, I try to do it in order of when they were published.
Ooh.
And sometimes, more often than not, my sets all have the box because I'm a sucker for a box. So,
yes.
If that's the case and the box doesn't like fit well on the shelves, like if it's going to leave like a huge gap in my shelves, if I'm doing them in order of like publication, then I might switch things around a bit, but that's typically how I do it. And then there are some books that, like if I have pre-movie, then I'll do like the first complete set, like pre-movie 1, 2, 3, the rest of the set. And then I'll do like the not pre-movie font if I happen to have that book as well at the end of that. That goes along with like my rules as well. But
I like your rules.
There's a method. There's a method to the madness.
It's good rules. Oh, you mentioned box sets. If I have a box set with a box, I have it separately. Because most of the...
No, I keep it in the box.
Well, I just have... No, I keep them in the box, but I have that box set in it. It's not part of my alphabetical area. Like I have like the room requirement set like in a corner shelf that only can fit.
Oh.
Because they look really cool.
They're amazing.
I don't have a whole bunch of I have like 3 box sets, so I don't need to squish them in there. And 2 of them are German books,
depends.
so I don't need a giant German wall of books. So I
the
have
German rainbow set I had to pull out because it's so big, right?
Yeah, it's
and it
huge.
would leave a weird gap in my shelf. So that was pulled out, but like the French room of requirement set was just in with the French. And like Melanie, it's if I have like multiple sets in different languages, then I have like they're alphabetized, of course, and grouped together by language, but also how they came out.
Makes sense.
Because it makes the most sense.
There's no wrong way. There's no wrong way to do it. And I know that we've mentioned this before, like other collectors that are native speakers of not English in other countries have their shelves organized in different ways. I know that I get the biggest kick out of looking at someone's collection that's organized by language, but in their native language. So like their first one is not necessarily Afrikaans. It's whatever they call Afrikaans in German or whatever they call it. Or whatever
I love seeing that.
I think that's super cool because it's a different order and it's not wrong by any means. So
no, it's fabulous.
It's really cool.
Which translations would you most like to see get new cover art? Ooh.
And, anything that's continually published that doesn't have it. So like I'm thinking like Faroese, right? They keep making them. I think that'd be really cool.
Albanian?
Sure,
Albanian?
Yeah, they keep making
They
them.
keep taking everyone else's unique cover art.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very funny. I would say Hebrew, honestly, because that's a country that I've been to, and I know that they have some really, really cool cultural artists, and there are like certain cities in Israel that have like the whole town is just based on their art, and I would love to see some unique art come out of Israel. I think that would be sick.
That would be.
I would love Hawaiian to have it like
Yeah, because
right?
we saw it with
'Cause
Maori.
you could do
Maori had their
so
own.
much. I know. Like I'm sad that, and I love Thomas Taylor's art. Don't get me wrong. That's what started off everything. But I just would love to see Hawaiian. You could do so much with that, right? Because I love Hawaiian art.
It'd be so colorful and
I would feel like I'm back in Hawaii every time I looked at the book. And who doesn't want to be back in Hawaii?
You make a good point.
Yeah. Point made. I think
I know.
To me, like I don't have a set one. Any one that is currently being published that you can easily buy at a bookstore that has not original art. So I don't know, Greek.
Yeah,
You know, like-
Greek is another one like Albanian. They keep using other individual art or other unique art.
Right. All right. What do we got next?
Why is the Sorcerer's Stone Deluxe Edition rare, expensive, while the Bloomsbury Philosopher's Stone is easy to find? First of all, Philosopher's Stone Bloomsbury Deluxe may be quote unquote easy to find, but what print? Right? They printed a lot more of the
true.
Philosopher's Stone Deluxe than they did of the Sorcerer's Stone Deluxe Edition or whatnot, the collector's edition with the strange green leatherette binding and
Yeah, is that
whatnot.
Are those are the books that we're talking about, I guess? And
Yeah,
the-
that's
the-
what I'm
I
taking
guess
it
so,
as.
right?
I thought we were talking about the illustrated editions.
It doesn't say
edition.
illustrated.
Oh,
No, the
that-
question just
It says
said
deluxe.
deluxe edition.
Oh, that's fine. I thought it was because Melanie, when you mentioned the deluxe illustrated editions, that Bloomsbury and Scholastic both printed them.
They did, and Scholastic, like I only have book 2 in Scholastic.
Right.
Deluxe
So
Illustrated.
that's what I went to
Yeah.
when you talked about the rare ones. That's what I thought this question was asking.
Oh no, I went straight to the deluxe, like the deluxe UK books and then the collector's edition. Because so many people call those deluxe when they're actually collector's editions, and there's not
and when
deluxe
they're actually
editions
not
for-
very deluxe.
No, there's nothing deluxe
They're
about
not.
those ones. Those
They
black
kind
leather
of
ones.
follow-
Ugh.
Well, they fall apart. Like
Crinkly plastic.
they weren't made well. Yeah, they weren't made well. Do you have any books that you regret not buying? So many. So many. Yeah. I regret not buying actually the alternate cover German book 5.
Alternate cover
Specifically.
German book 5?
Not 5, 6. Because
Ha-
I had the opportunity to buy
Oh.
6 or 7. And I bought 7.
You have that?
You have 7 with the fire on it?
I don't know. It hasn't come yet. I bought it like before I moved several times, and
Oh
it's
my
still
gosh.
in Germany. So I actually don't know which one I bought. I just know I regretted not buying the other one that was for sale.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have a very. It's one of the. I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, I definitely get that because I feel like I had the opportunity to get that one too, or book 7 of the alternate cover because I have book 6, and I don't like when I'm buying books from someone and they're like, "Well, name your price." I'm like, "Well, you know how much the book is worth." Like, and clearly, I guess you have a bunch of other people that are going to be like bidding on your book. Like, then put
Right.
it on eBay if you're going to be doing something like that. But don't be like, name your price. How much would you pay for it? Because like, you don't want to
Then
know how much would I would pay for it. Like,
Well,
You
and
won't
then
like
on
that
top of
answer.
that, when you deal with me with stuff, when you say name your price, I think that you're accepting my offer.
Yeah,
because
for
I'm super literal. So when you say name your price, I'm like, cool, let's do this transaction. So I'm trying to think of what I would actually really pay for this if it were up on auction. But then I find out, and it's happened several times, oh, well, it sold to someone who paid higher. Well, I didn't know that higher was an option. You didn't tell me that was an option.
Right. I know. So I don't like when people deal like that. But I can think of one book in particular that stands out as a book that I regret not getting so badly. It was a first edition, first print of Sorcerer's Stone, and it was signed by J.K. Rowling, and it said, happy reading, like was the inscription. It said, happy reading, J.K. Rowling. And it was not that expensive. It was definitely a rear signature, and I remember showing it to you guys. I remember showing it to you and Peter, and you both being like, oh yeah, that's an awesome book. You should sell, because I have a first edition first print of Sorcerer's Stone, and Peter was like, just sell that book and then put that money toward this signed book, because it wasn't really that much more, and I just didn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
And it hurts my soul, especially after we had that conversation with Adam. I was like, why didn't I get that book? Happy reading. Yeah. Oh, it was beautiful.
It's more like sad.
I'm trying to remember.
Sad regret.
There's been some really regretful, but I'm really happy with everything I wind up buying. So usually if I miss out on a book, it's because I just take it as I'm not supposed to have it, and something else better usually comes along, or better for my collection anyway, usually comes along. So, there's been some signed books that I've regretted not buying, but at the end of the day, I love which ones I actually do have. So it works out.
I don't have one specific one. I think all of us regret on not buying things sooner when they were cheaper. I do wish. So Adam has that wonderful signed Italian Chamber of Secrets.
Ooh.
I would have loved to have had that. And that was up for sale for a little bit. So when he told me he bought it, I knew which one he was talking about. And I would have loved to have had that one. I'm not going to lie. So there's that.
There's that. But you know what book that none of us can regret not buying?
I feel it, whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
Not a translation or transformation. It's called a transition.
There you go. All right. So the translation of the show today is Croatian.
I'm so excited about this book.
Me too. And I had wanted to do a different one, and Melanie was like, well, have we done Croatian? And I looked back at the wonderful spreadsheet that Johnny has made us, and no, we had not. And I was kind of like, all right, what's so special about this? And I pulled it out of my shelf, and I was like, boom.
This book is straight up special.
This book is something else. I love it. So just a little bit before we talk about this, and now you're going to make me say a bunch of things in Croatian, and I don't know Croatian. But the publisher of this book is Algoritam. It's like algorithm without the H. So maybe it means the same thing. I don't know. The translator is Zlatko Srnkovic.
Good job.
Srnkovic?
That sounded great.
Yeah, I'm trying my best here. And this individual was only the translator for the first 3 books. They had a different person do the translations for books 4, 5, 6, and 7. So not uncommon.
No.
But a little more streamlined than some of the translations where they have like a different person for each book, which I don't know how they can.
Or a group where they use a translation group. Yeah.
Right. So, just really, really quick about Croatian, the language. 5.6 million speakers, according to the Wikipedia article. But there's a lot of other dialects of this language, which I was unaware of. So, this language is official in Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Austria, and it's an official language of the European Union. There's other countries that are not Croatia. I don't think it's an official language for the whole country. It's official in some capacity, whether it's by like a region or a territory of that particular country. I don't know for sure. I'm not an expert, but I do know that it is also a minority language in Montenegro, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, and parts of Italy, which is pretty,
I did not know about Italy.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
One thing I did think was cool about this is that Croatian uses the Latin alphabet, but it's also, according to Wikipedia, available in Yugoslav Braille. So apparently,
That is so cool.
when all of these countries are part of Yugoslavia, maybe they had their own Braille. I don't know anything about this, so that seems to be like a Harrison thing to look into.
Yeah,
or something
Harrison
else,
question.
Something else that I'm going to do some reading about later is Yugoslav Braille. Didn't know about that. Or if it's still a thing, even. I don't know. Seems like it is, though.
Very cool.
So let's get down to the old Todd scale with this book. I think we should mention right off the bat that this book is the Grand Prix cover art, which is the American cover art. It is a hardcover book. At least my copy is. I don't know about you two ladies.
Yep.
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 And it is the hardcover book style where there's no jacket. It's just the boards, and that's it, really. Like there's no jacket.
Right.
And before we get too far into like going through the scale, we should mention the rarity and the value. I thought this wasn't too hard to get, but I did some looking this afternoon and I could not find it very easily.
Huh.
I looked at some bookstores in Zagreb and Dubrovnik, both in Croatia, on their websites, and they did not have this book. It was sold out, and it was listed as sold out on their site. But funnily enough, the book that was in stock was the Bosnian book.
Oh,
that's
interesting.
funny.
And they were selling them individually, and they were selling the Bosnian set together, as well as the English books. So,
I mean, I can tell you quick little fun fact is part of the reason why I wanted to do this book was because you guys did Slovenia a few weeks ago and I missed the episode. And Slovenia is one of the places I went to on my honeymoon, but where I spent quite a bit more time on my honeymoon was Croatia. And obviously any place that I go to that's not the United States that has Harry Potter books, I'm going to be looking for them there. And in the 3 cities that we went to in Croatia, only one of them had bookstores that we were able to access, and they also were sold out of book 1.
wow.
So isn't that pretty wild?
Huh.
So because I probably would have gotten another book 1 while I was on my honeymoon just to have another book 1, but I ended up getting book 6 because book 6 is my favorite book, and I was in Croatia, and you're not going to not get a Croatian Harry Potter book when you're in Croatia. So, yeah, I got book 6 because they were sold out of book 1.
Interesting.
It all jives.
It is. And we talked about when we did the Bosnian book that these languages are very similar. And even Potterglot mentioned how like the intelligibility between some of these languages of whether it's Serbian or Bosnian or Croatian, like they're very similar. The title of this book is the same title as the Bosnian book. So I feel like Potterglot mentioned, if you can read Croatian, you can obviously read the Bosnian because they're selling it in Croatia. They wouldn't sell it there if people weren't able to understand and read it. So I don't know if that's because it's a better translation, or maybe this publisher is no longer around, or it's out of print. I don't know. It just led me to think then.
They did have the Johnny Duddle softcover Croatian at one point.
They did, but those were even not available when I was looking today. So
no, those have actually been hard to find, I've been told.
So I was going to give this book like a 2 for rarity, but I mean, based on what I was looking at today, I'm like 3 tipping up to 4.
I'm thinking 3.
Even.
Yeah.
I'm like a 3.5.
Especially if you want a Grand Prix cover. So I don't know. And so then value, I don't know. I was going to say it's the price of a normal book, which mine is 85. I don't know what they use. They probably KN. I don't know. Okay.
The Kuna.
Cool. So yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what a good value would this be. So I guess if you're listening to this and you don't have this book, I would recommend you try to get this one now.
Sooner than later.
Because I thought it was worth a lot less than it was. I couldn't even find any on eBay. I didn't find any on any of the Amazon sites. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Go
See
get
if
it. Go get it. Good luck, everybody. And we'll tell you why you want this, not only because it seems to be disappearing, but because if you open it up and you give it a smell.
Oh, that was a good transition.
Look at you. Oh. Oh, wow.
You have an oh wow? I just have a kind of like, it's fine.
I love it.
Oh.
No. Mine is like, the problem is that I feel like the only outstanding I could ever give out is to Slovak, because you guys all know how I feel about Slovak, but this is like an exceeds expectations plus. Mine smells so good. Like, it just smells like old bookstore good.
It does. I would say it smells like a bookstore. I'd give it an A. And that, again, that's not a bad score. I'd give it an A.
I love that.
I don't have my copy with me, but I will say I remember mine exceeding all expectations.
Okay.
It's so good. It's so good. Oh, Carly, you'd love it.
I'm sure.
But something that I am really, really excited to talk about are the size and proportions of this book, because
I love the size and proportions of this book.
it's big. It's a big book. Big boy here.
It's outstanding for me. Like, I love it.
I would also give it an outstanding, and I think it's an outstanding because it's big, but it's not obtrusively big. Like the Kamai books are big, and they're like
floppy.
Like, what do we do with this? But like this book is, the proportions are great. The thickness is really great. It's not like it just doesn't feel nothing about it. Nothing about it feels. No, like nothing about it feels like out of place. Like you're not like, whoa, it's way too tall. Like it doesn't feel
you
like
yourself.
You know, it doesn't feel like it's really big, but it's still really thin. Like proportionally, it all matches up.
It's really
to me.
nice.
So I give it an O. I think it's an outstanding proportion book, and it's just great.
Yeah, I completely agree. Outstanding.
I would agree.
And usually books that have good size and proportions also feel good in your hand. And let me tell you, everyone, this is no exception. I also give this an outstanding for how it feels in your hand. It's very sturdy. I think the quality and I know the quality, right, of the boards make it so it's easy to hold. Like it's not going to fall apart. It's not flimsy.
You can hold it in your hand.
You can hold it,
and then it's
yes.
And the spine is geared in such a way that it'll flop open to the page without having to like hold it open with your other hand.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I feel like this does kind of delve into the quality a little bit, but like when spines are made really...
It feels great in the hand.
Yeah, when spines are made really well, it feels really good to open this book. It's not a chore. You don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't open it because it's going to crease or wreck the spine or anything. So it's I also give that an outstanding.
I agree
I would agree.
For every reason that you said, I completely agree. It really is wonderful.
And then I guess going into quality, I really don't know how this book could get any better for being what it is. Like there's no jacket, so it's not you know, kind of relies on the quality of the boards in general, but the Harry Potter font on the front, which is again kind of going into the next topic too. It's embossed into the book. There's not going to be any fading of the foil. There's foil on the spine. It's just really, really well made. If you look at the inside of the boards, it's like a continuation of the art on the front,
now,
which I love.
I have a question for you because the end papers are the cover art.
Yeah.
Is yours, like when you open the front cover, is it
the back
cover art?
Yep.
I wasn't sure if that was like a mistake or not, but I guess not. I mean, it's so cool because it gives you the opportunity to really see the entire image, which you might not necessarily get when you look at just the book. You get to really see the whole thing. So
right,
because it's got the curtains in it, and that's part of the whole image that you don't normally see unless you have the cover to fold out, or if you have like a box set that has them printed on the side, which I think one of my American box sets actually has all the long prints for the first 2 books printed on them, which is weird. But quality wise, I give this an outstanding. I think it's great.
I agree.
I
I feel
can't-
like it holds
I
up
agree.
so nicely. So
I can't find
another
any fault. I
outstanding.
think Carly, you're always into the paper quality. I think the paper quality's like I can't find any fault with that either. So it's really cool.
so-
The only thing that I guess I don't love about it is that there are no chapter art illustrations. And usually if they have the Grand Prix cover
Yeah.
art, they include those as well. That's not a make or break, but
I would have enjoyed those.
I would have enjoyed adding those in. If you were going to get the Grand Prix art, I don't know if that comes lumped
But it
together.
probably would have upped the cost of the book because it's more ink.
Yeah, you got to upgrade to the
Yeah.
different Patreon level to get the Grand Prix chapter art. If you're just going to pay the minimum, you'll get the cover, but we can't give you the chapter art.
The art. No art.
No, sorry, that's the second tier.
Oh boy.
And so then I guess, well, Melanie, do you have anything else you want to say about the quality, or do you want to just talk right about the cover art?
No, I completely agree with everything that you said as far as the quality. I mean, my pages are like a bit yellowed, but I tend to like that in a book anyway, because I feel like I don't like when the books are pristine white, because then it almost makes you feel like you can't handle it. I feel like this is definitely a book that you really can handle well, and it holds up really well. So
True. And I mean, book pages will yellow. Like that's just, it's a book, right? Unless you're keeping them in like a humidor. Is that what they're called?
Humidified area.
humidor.
A humidor. Yeah. Where you,
Those are for cigars.
I know, but like if you're putting them in a climate controlled like chamber, then maybe you can prevent
Right.
that. But if they're around any light at all from any window of any source, it's going to eventually yellow the pages. It's a book. It's paper. So, you ever seen the Declaration of Independence? Anybody? It's pretty yellow.
Yeah.
It's pretty yellow. So then the cover art I think is great. I can't find any fault. It's just very standard Grand Prix cover art, which I wish they would have done something unique. I think we all would have. However, if you're just looking at it in terms of how they interpreted the Grand Prix cover art, everything's there. It's not like the snitch is missing like in some books, or it doesn't look unnatural where they put the Philosopher's Stone part of the translation above the archway. It looks like it fits in really well. It's not just stuck on there. And they didn't cut anything out. It's not zoomed in or zoomed out in a weird angle. So I don't know. I have a hard time giving that an outstanding. So I'm going to give it an exceeds expectations, unless I've given another Grand Prix art an outstanding. And if I have, then I will also have to give this one.
I like how they continued with the inside, like the cover art into the inside of the book. I think that was clever,
Yeah.
personally.
Are you trying to talk me up to an O here?
I think I'm like almost I'm like exceeds expectations 0.5, because I love the inside paste downs.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, that's fair. So if it's talking about interpreting the cover art, they said, hey, we didn't do a jacket, but we're not going to rob you from seeing the whole image, so we're going to put it on the inside in beautiful color, like glossy print. So yeah, okay, fine. I'll give it an O.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I thought that was
appreciate
clever.
when you put it that way. I definitely appreciate where you're going with it, but I'm still going to stick with an exceeds expectations for it, only because I feel like my O's are typically reserved for unique cover
Slovak?
art.
I know,
Oh
but
no, not
I know,
Slovak, but
and
I
that's-
just mean like unique cover art. I feel like when it's something
Yeah.
unique, it's definitely more standout. So.
And I feel that way too, but then the category is cover art / interpretation of cover art. So I feel like in this spirit of this, we have to judge this
know.
against other books that have interpreted the Grand Prix art. So obviously,
Where they just stop.
I'm not
I
going to say
see.
I'm not going to say this covers better than like the new Lithuanian or the new Slovak book, right?
No,
because
no,
you
but-
can't compare them.
I see what you're saying, but I'm sticking with exceeds expectations.
Okay, fine.
All I have to say about that.
That's all
I'm
we're
going
say
for the
about-
I'm going to say outstanding, just because out of all the Grand Prix cover art that we've seen that don't include jackets, this one does a good job of including the whole thing.
This is some of the shiniest foil that I've ever seen on a book, and it still looks great. Like,
You're not going to get me to change my mind.
It's really great. And you know what? and if you open your book to page 50, you'll find a $20 bill and a note from me that says outstanding.
Silly goose.
No, so that's it. That's Croatian. Great pick, Melanie.
I know. And you know what's so funny is Alon's background on his computer, because I'm recording on his computer tonight, is a picture of Dubrovnik when we were there. And
oh, neat.
It's one of my favorite cities that I've ever been to. And just like to put out there, I feel like Croatia is not necessarily like a country that you would be like, oh yeah, where do you want to go? I've always wanted to go to Croatia. I feel like people don't necessarily say that, but you should. Like, it was one of the most beautiful countries. It's so unique because it is mostly these like little teeny tiny islands on the coast of Croatia. There's this huge mountain wall that creates a really, really unique climate, and there are really cool national parks, but there are also really unique cities, and also Game of Thrones for the most part was filmed there, so that's really cool. But it's just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful country, so
it's on my list for sure. And I'm not a cruise taker, but I know that a lot of people have visited like Dubrovnik on a cruise. Like, cruise ships do stop there. So
yeah, that's what we did for our honeymoon. We had a ton of stops, and it was a really long cruise. But when you cruise, you spend like full days in these cities when it's like a European cruise. So thankfully that's what we did, and we got to go to Split, which is a big city, and we also went to Dubrovnik, and there was one other place that we went to that had a national preserve and giant waterfalls and all sorts of stuff. But it is absolutely a breathtaking place, so go there. That's all we have time for today. If you want to, yay, we did it. We podcasted. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us all on Instagram. You can find Carly at All the Pretty Books. You can find Erik at Nocturne Erik, like Nocturne Alley, like Dialogue Alley, Nocturne Alley, Nocturne Erik. That's how we got there. Or you can find me at the Harry Potter Collection, and you can feel free to send us DMs there if you want to reach us all individually, or you can DM us directly at this podcast, which is at Dialoguealleypodcast. On our Instagram account, that's where you're going to find pictures of things that we talked about today. But also, we are really going to be getting active on our Discord. And like we were saying before, our Discord is going to have access to the list of the books that we collect, and it's going to be so much more interactive. There's going to be constant access to that, and you can get access to the Discord by joining us on Patreon, and you could do that by going to patreon.com/dialoguealley. And we really hope to see you guys there. That would be so exciting. We're really excited about it, and we're really excited about sharing new content and spreading the Dialogue Alley podcast community, and getting more in contact with you guys. So we're really stoked about it. But like always, we're going to continue this podcast, and you can listen to us on Apple, on Google, on Spotify, any other podcast hosting locations. Alexa will magically tell you all the podcast things if you just ask her to, which is pretty fantastic. Or you could just click the little purple app like I do. Well, wherever you guys are listening to us on, it would be really awesome if you could leave us a review for other people to see what our podcast is all about. This way, it's really helpful for us to see what you guys think, and it's really helpful for new listeners. And I also just want to put out there, too, we keep saying that you'll have access to our Discord through our Patreon, but if Discord's not your thing and you are just into supporting our podcast, just know that you can still get on the Patreon. We're thinking about, if you join a certain tier, that you might get a gift once a year or something really cool like that. There are going to be other things attached to the Patreon as well. And also, everything from the Patreon goes right back into this podcast. It's not like we're going to be getting filthy rich from Patreon. It's going to be supporting us so we can give it back to you guys at the end of the day. So we're really appreciative of everybody's support, and we're excited to see where everything is going to go. With all of that being said, now it is time to walk back through the archway and into your daily lives. We will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Carly. Bye, Eric. See ya.